Morning, everyone. You really don't need anyone else after Juan. It was a phenomenal speech, Juan. Thank you so much. I had prepared remarks today, and then, my friends, I discovered that a good friend of mine who will be joining you after I'm done is retiring, and that's Therese Chipchak. And the reason that's important to me is the most recent book that I completed that came out this year is on the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. It's entitled King of Life. And what I want to talk to you about today, I think, dovetails with what Samantha and Arsima shared with you and what Juan talked about in terms of this moment that you find yourselves in where you're about to graduate and there's all these expectations about what you'll do in the future. But you need to take stock and recognize that a life is a precious and fragile thing. It's a gift. What you do with the time that you have on this planet is important. Some people invest that time very wisely, and they inspire people. I was reading the board back there, and I saw how some of you were talking about the people who inspired you, like LeBron James and SZA, or your parents or your teachers, and that's wonderful. But I'll talk about a person who inspired me, and that was Therese, because she gave her entire life to this community, a life of service and educating young people. My friends, last week I happened to be in Hollywood. First time I got to do a red carpet event. And it was hosted by a very famous Hollywood actor named Kevin Costner. And when I went to meet Mr. Costner, and I walked up to him, his bodyguard, who was a very large gentleman, was pushing people out of the way. And I thought to myself how interesting it is to be in Hollywood and have the opportunity to meet this actor who touches and inspires millions. And yet when people come to touch him, people push him away and he can't be touched. And then I think about that in the context of your teachers and your parents and people like Therese who've given their whole lives toward being accessible because they want to be touched, because they want to inspire you, because they believe in you, because they put you first. I share that with you because the word ascension is a powerful word because it means to rise. And when we think about that, we can think about it in a biblical context, and we can talk about it from the standpoint that it gives us hope because when Jesus rose from the dead, when he ascended, he conquered death. But now as graduates of ascension, the question is, if he conquered death and you got through this process, what can't you conquer? And what will you do with your life, the time that you have this precious gift going forward that can inspire others? Because the assumption is at this point that, well, I'm just beginning my career, or I'm just going off to college, but you should already be thinking about, what do I want to leave and what do I want people to say about me? See, Juan, what I loved about your speech is that when you talked about the memories, even now at this point, you were going year by year. Each one of those moments is precious and they go quick. But you said about your friends in 6th grade that at the end of the day, they left a history. Each one of you will leave a history. Each one of you will leave a mark. And all great people answer 3 questions. And the way they answer those 3 questions ultimately determines the mark that they leave. Those 3 questions are simply these. Who am I? Whose am I? And who am I called to be? Be very reflective about how you answer those questions. Who am I? Whose am I? Who am I called to be? Therese, one of the most brilliant people that I know, recognized early on that the greatest gift was embodied in something that Jackie Robinson said. Even though he was a baseball player, people think about Jack in terms of what he did in terms of the baseball diamond. Jack said, a life is not important except in the impact that it has on other lives. If you're not helping other people rise, if you're not utilizing your light, Samantha, and Arsima, in the way that you did in testifying, to stand up for things that are just, then you are not ascending. You're kind of staying in place. So my friends, I want us to think about rise today as a way to inspire you going forward. Number one, that R, remember and reach. Because as Juan pointed out, it's important to remember, but those memories should drive you to reach for the next thing, something better, for yourself and for others. So you should always remember and reach if you're going to rise. Number 2, invest in the people around you, in your community. See, when we ask those questions, who am I, whose am I, who am I called to be? Who I am is not what I do for a living. It's how I show up for the people that I care about and how I represent the community and values that have helped me reach and attain what I've attained in life. what people will judge you by one day is not by the accolades that you have. They'll judge you by how you showed up for the things that mattered in your community. The S is to see, because you really need to see possibility. You need to see and recognize that even though in this moment it may seem far away, you have a tremendous opportunity to shape the future. Not just your own future, but the future of our community. And before you assume that, hey, there's no role for me to play and other people have that in hand, why then did they want 2 students to testify before the House? Because your testimony matters. Your life matters in that way. And last but not least, my friends, my young friends, that E in that rise. I need you to embrace hope, but I also need you to understand that you need to be able to evolve. Because see, the person who recognizes the power of ascending recognizes that you never reach the next level. You simply evolve. And you continue to evolve to meet the challenges that manifest themselves in terms of your career, in terms of your life, in terms of your family. And when you are presented with things that seem so insurmountable, so great, what you do is you dig deep down in those memories. And you remember those other times where you were challenged. And you recognize that you are conquerors. That's what Ascension trained you to be. You are community drivers of change, because that's what Ascension asked you to embrace. You are children of God, and that means that you embody something far greater, a power far greater than you can imagine. Lean into it, my friends, because Minneapolis needs you, Minnesota needs you, America needs you, the world needs you. And before you assume that your role is so insignificant and that you're so small, recognize that everybody that you touch, Juan, Samantha, or Seema, you inspire in the same way that Teresa's inspired so many people, in a way that so many of the educators in this room have inspired so many people. The reason that so many people are touched by what you do and invest in you is because they believe in your future. And so, as you go forward, I would leave you with some wisdom from Martin Luther King Jr., who participated in his first protest when he was 15 years old. People don't know this. See, the assumption is Dr. King just became a great civil rights leader one day because he was a phenomenal speaker. But I want to point out, in the way that I talked about Juan earlier, that Dr. King had a life and a legacy. He surrounded himself with really good people, his good friends, and his friends who grew up with him in Alabama looked around and they said, why do things have to be like this? Why does there need to be segregation? Somebody ought to do something about that. And he was so inspired by his friends and his teachers like Dr. Mordecai Johnson and others, that he used those inspirations and memories to drive him. And when he left the earth, at just 38 years old, when people look back, they said, that was a life of service that brought life and joy and hope to our community. Let your life legacy begin today as you begin to reflect on the ways that you too can bring light, hope, joy, as conquerors of those things that bring pain to communities, but as champions of those things that can bring light. Congratulations, Ascension. We're looking forward to watching you rise. Thank you.